Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for the podcast of the True Power from Within. I do pray each and every day that this podcast touches you in the most amazing and encouraging way. So, I was listening to a message yesterday, and you know, God, in my in my experience, God shows me things in words or phrases, or sometimes you'll listen to a word. I'm sure you can relate. You can be listening to a word or a podcast, and there'll be just this short phrase that hits you, right? Or it'll be just a word that hits you, and you're like, oh my gosh, and it gives you this revelation, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? And so we stick with that. Well, yesterday I was listening to a podcast, and he said something very profound. And he says that we curse the grave. We curse the grave. And I said to myself, I was like, and it hit me, but I was like, okay, so why is this hitting me, right? I've got to dig into this, right? I've got to find the word that is relevant to this, because I don't understand why it hit me so hard. I was like, curse the grave. Curse the grave. And I'm like, okay, so Lord, what does this mean, right? So as I was digging in to the word, I came to Deuteronomy chapter 8, right? And I'm going to read some of this, actually starting at verse 1, and I'm going to end up at verse 10. But in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 1, it says, carefully follow every command that I am giving you today, so that you may live and increase, and you may enter and take possession of the land the Lord swore to your fathers. Remember that the Lord your God led you to on the entire journey of these 40 years in the wilderness, so that he might humble you and test you to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. He humbled you by letting you go hungry, and then he gave you manna to eat, which you and your fathers had not known, so that you might learn that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Your clothing did not wear out, your feet did not swell these 40 years. Keep in mind that the Lord your God has been disciplining you, just as a man disciplines his son. Okay, so in this particular thing, okay, in this particular scripture, this is kind of this is where the they've been in the wilderness for 40 years, right? And so we know the story of the wilderness. They're on their way to Canaan, and because of their behaviors and their disbelief and all of that, it took them 40 years to get a very short distance, right, from one place to the other. And if you remember, or if you've read about it, they would complain, right? They would complain that they wanted to eat meat, and all they're getting is manna and this and that, right? So they're always complaining, and then their disbelief, and they're always just basically cursing the place that they were at in that current time, even though God was taking care of them, right? He was providing for them, but he was also trying to show them something and teach them something. And so I'm thinking, okay, so here God is giving me these words, right? We curse the grave. We curse the grave. How many times in your life do you go through something and you're complaining and you're cursing exactly where you're at, right? Maybe you're in the wilderness, right? Maybe you're having financial difficulties. Maybe you've lost your job. Maybe you have a kid that's acting up. Maybe you're just going through some personal stuff, some insecurities, an addiction, prison, whatever it is, right? We're going through these things in our life, right? These hard moments, these hard times, and we're cursing it the whole way. Why are we here? What did we do wrong? Why me, God? And we're constantly cursing where we are in that season of our life, right? And sometimes when God puts us in a place of wilderness, right? Or there's got to be a grave, meaning there's a grave. We know that a grave would represent death, right? There's got to be a death of something to get to something else, right? And so I'm like, okay, so God, why are you leading me this? Like, give me something, right? And here's what I saw, right? And here's what hit me, because I heard curse the grave. We curse the grave, right? We curse when we're in the wilderness, right? We're ungrateful, we complain, we don't understand, we're constantly asking God, why have you left us? Why are you having us here? Why are we going through this? Why do we have to go through this addiction? Why do we have to go through the abuse? Why do we have to go through homelessness? Why do we have to go through financial difficulties? Why do we have to go through losing our job? We're constantly cursing a place that God has us in, right? But here's what he showed me. And if you've ever heard any Bible story, okay, you know this. But sometimes we don't see it. And I didn't see it because he revealed this to me. He said, without the grave, there is no resurrection. Let me say that again. Without the grave, there is no resurrection. What does that mean? That means that something has got to die for something else to be resurrected in your life. All right? God's got to get rid of the addiction to bring you to purpose. He's got to get rid of the insecurities to bring you into a secure place where you feel secure about yourself and about your life, right? He's got to bring you through something to get you to something else, right? But in the meantime, when he's bringing you from the wilderness to the promised land, he's got to bring you through some things, right? He's got to work some things out. And it says right here that he had to humble you. See, sometimes our ego gets the best of us. Our pride gets the best of us, right? Sometimes we feel like we're too good for that, right? No, I can't tell nobody about what I've been through because they're going to think something about me. But let me tell you something. Everybody goes through the wilderness at some point in their life, whether they talk about it, whether they share about it, whether they want to admit it, or whether they're in denial. But everybody in life goes through a wilderness. Everybody in life goes through a grave season, right? Where some things have to die so that other things can come to life, right? There's got to be that grave moment, that wilderness moment, so that God can resurrect you into something much more beautiful. And see, sometimes we want to skip over that season, right? We want to skip over the wilderness and we want to go right into prosperity, right? We want to go right into the overflow and the favor. And we don't want to go through these grave seasons, because why would we want to do that? Why would we want to struggle? Why would we want to lose our job, right? Why would we want to have to go through an addiction? Or why would we want to have to go through grief or sickness or any of these different things, right? Because God has to take us through a season where he can humble us. He's got to take us through a season where he knows that when we do get to prosperity, when we do get to the favor, when we do get to the abundance, we do get to the overflow, he can trust us with his commandments, right? He can trust us to know that just, because he gives us the blessings and he gives us the abundance, that we're not going to turn away from him. Right? Because he knows that in these seasons and in these miracles that he's doing in our lives, that he needs to know that once he gets us to that prosperity season, or he gets us to that resurrection season, that we're still going to need him, right? He needs to know that, even though he's bringing us from glory to glory, that we're still going to reach out to him. We're still going to pray to him, right? He's trying to grow some things and change some things in us. But sometimes we don't want to go through those grave seasons. So instead of accepting the season in the wilderness, right? Instead of putting our pride aside, instead of dropping the ego, instead of looking for the things that we can learn and we can grow from in these seasons of wilderness or grave seasons, whatever you want to call them, we curse them. We complain. We turn away from God. We question him. But here's the thing. The seasons of overflow, the seasons of prosperity, the seasons of favor, all of these seasons, right, can kill us without the grave or without the wilderness. Because when you go into a prosperity season, you've got to be prepared, right? You can't go into I could not, I'm going to say this. I could not have gone into a prosperity season 10 years ago when I was stepping out of prison, right? I couldn't be in this season of my life right now when I was walking out of prison, because I would have ruined it for myself, right? I would have ruined the blessings. I would have ruined the overflow because I had no idea what I was doing. God had to grow me in these seasons. God had to pluck some things away. God had to continue to heal some things, right? He still had to take me through a few different steps and levels to get me to where I am today. But if it wasn't for that wilderness season, if it wasn't for that learning season, if it wasn't for the growing season, right? I would have killed this season right here because it was given to me too early. I don't know who needs to hear this. And I hope that I'm making sense, because this is just what God gave me to say. God has a way of testing us in a wilderness season, in a grave season, right? He has a way of testing us so that when he gets us to the promised land, we don't fail. I'm going to say that again. God will test us in the wilderness, right? When he's preparing us, when he's growing us, when he's stretching us, when he's trying to get us out of that mindset of fear, right? And he's trying to get us into humility. He's trying to get us into prayer. He's trying to get us into these places that we've never been before, right? But he gives us some tests, right? The test may come in a financial loss, right? It may come in a job loss. It may come in a loss of a family member. It may come in so many different areas, right? Maybe it's in your mindset, right? Maybe he's trying to get you into a different mindset. But he's going to test us in these seasons, right? And it even says that, right? He in the wilderness, he'll test you. Where did that say that at? Dun, dun, dun. I can't see where it said it. But anyways, it says it that he will test you, right? So let me go down to verse 6. So walking in his ways and fearing him, for the Lord your God is bringing you to a good land, a land of streams, springs, and deep water sources, flowing in both valleys and hills, a land of wheat, barley, vines, figs, and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land where you will eat food without shortage, where you will lack nothing, a land where rocks and iron and from those hills you will mine copper when you eat and are full, and you will bless the Lord your God for the good lands that he has given you. So we see in these very short 10 passages that God, this is where they're coming into the promised land. But they went through 40 years in the wilderness. They went through 40 years of a grave season, right? God is trying to subtract some things in your life so that he can multiply some things when he gets you to the promised land, right? But it says that so God led you on the entire journey in the wilderness so that he might humble you and test you to know what was in your heart. What is in your heart today? Are you asking God for all of these things, these blessings, this overflow? Are you asking Him to get you out of the wilderness season, out of grave season? Are you asking Him for so many things in this season of your life? But are you seeing the things that He's trying to pull from you? Are you seeing the very things He's trying to teach you and show you in the season of wilderness, in the grave season, right? Because ultimately, as I said a few minutes ago, there's got to be a grave to be a resurrection, right? You're not going through this wilderness season for nothing. You're not going through the financial difficulties for nothing. You're not going through these the battle of the mind for nothing, right? Because I went through a season of that. I still struggle with that at times, right? Because I get in my own head. I will self-sabotage in a second, right? And God had to take me through this season of mindset shift, right? He had to take me through this season to get me out of the insecurity of myself, because I was so insecure and so fearful of doing this. I was so fearful, and I had such imposter syndrome, right? I had issues with a money mindset, right? I had horrible issues with money mindset because I had a scarcity money mentality. And God says, in the wilderness or in this grave season, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to leave you. I'm not, just because you don't hear me does not mean I'm not listening. But in this season, I'm trying to show you something so that when I get you to the promised land, you don't ruin the very blessing that I've been trying to get you to. You're asking for, you know, some people are, I'm just going to give an example. We have a friend that's always saying, "Oh, I'm praying for a husband. I'm praying for a husband," right? But are you prepared to be a good wife? Maybe you're praying for a wife. Are you prepared to be a good husband? Maybe you're praying for a new job. Are you prepared for that new job? Maybe you're praying for a financial breakthrough, but are you a good steward over what you have now? See, sometimes in the wilderness, we curse the very things that God's trying to teach us, right? We want to skip over the hard part and get to the good part. We want to skip over the seasons of planting and watering and pruning, and we want to just get to the seasons of harvest. But we have to get into the mentality that there's going to be some lessons, and there's going to be some blessings, and there's going to be some experiences along the way. We can't skip over that, because those are the very things that are growing us and maturing us and giving us a different mindset, giving us a different heart, right? It's in those painful moments that we're getting those transformations, right? And in those pain moments, and in between those pain and transformation moments is where your purpose is going to emerge, right? So we can't skip over those seasons, because God is saying, I have the miracles, right? But I have to mold you, as in like your clay. We hear the story of the clay, right? And the potter, he's molding you, right? He's molding you. He's toughening you up. He's getting you into a different mentality. He's trying to show you a few things. He's trying to take you to a few things. So once he gets you into the promised land, and when he gets you into the land of milk and honey, when he gets you into all of the promises and all of the blessings that he is, and the favor, the abundance, and everything that he has promised you, you're not going to ruin it. Because we have a tendency as humans of getting something and we destroy it because we were not ready for what it was that God has blessed us with, right? Or we'll go through a season of wilderness, and then we'll get the blessing, right? And we ruin it because we weren't ready for it, or because we didn't see the lessons and the experiences and all of these things that God was trying to show us in that time of wilderness. I had somebody in my inbox the other day, And it hit me, right? It hit me so hard because, for one, I don't like people selling me on my social media, right? But I had this friend request one morning. I accepted it. And it was a conversation that went all on like all day. And I knew what she was doing. I already knew. Okay. But it was like she was telling me, oh, I can do this for you, and you can make $97,000, and you did that. And I said, no, I'm not interested in that. I live my life very intentional, right? I I don't do anything that I'm not passionate about. I've learned my lesson on that. And she says, don't let your fear disrupt your luck. And most of my customers say that, yeah, they're not going to do this, or they don't believe in it or whatever until they make their first withdrawal. Here's what I'm going to tell you, and this is what I told her. Happiness, for one, I don't believe in luck. Two, happiness does not come from a physical object. Okay? Meaning, happiness does not come from money. It does not come from material things. It does not come from someone else. Happiness comes from here, and from here, and from here. Happiness comes, blessings come, abundance come, favor comes when you rely on the right source. When you accept the fact that you're going to have to go through some things to get to some things. Happiness comes when you accept the assignment that God has given you. Happiness comes when you stop fearing the future, but have faith to know that God is doing something great in your life. See, when she messaged me and said that, I immediately thought of, Lord, bless her heart, right? Because when you have nothing but a money mentality, you're missing out on the greater purpose that God has given you, right? It's not about having all the money. It's not about having all the fancy cars or the fanciest house or the fanciest clothes or the most followers on Instagram or the best pictures. It's about what comes from here, what comes from here, and what comes from here. So your head, your heart, and your mouth. What are you speaking over today? Are you cursing the grave? Or are you saying, Lord, show me what it is that you're trying to teach me in this season of the wilderness or in the grave season? Because I know through your word that there has to be a grave to be a resurrection. So God, prepare me for this resurrection in my life. Prepare me for the promised land, right? I don't want to kill the prosperity because I was so ungrateful in the grave season or in the wilderness season, right? I don't want to kill the prosperity because I was not paying attention in the grave season, right? I wasn't paying attention to those things that you were trying to rid me from. I wasn't paying attention to the things that you were trying to teach me. I was not paying attention to my finances, right? I was just going and I was blowing money and I was doing this. I wasn't a good steward, right? I was not willing to learn in the grave season or in the wilderness season. I wasn't listening or looking for the test in these seasons, right? So that I could have the lesson, right? We know that there's a lesson, there's a test, right? We know that. We go to school, right? We know that the teacher is going to give us a lesson and give us a test. So in the spiritual realm, are you accepting the lesson God's giving you? Are you passing the test? So that when he brings you to that promised land, the land of milk and honey, the land of blessings, that you're prepared for it? But here's something real important that I want you, and I don't know if you caught this in the scripture, but let me find it really quickly. It says that right here, it says that, okay, so in verse 4, it says, your clothing did not wear out and your feet did not swell in these 40 years. All right, listen. That shows you in the scripture, okay, that God is going to protect you, right? He is going to provide for you because he's your provider. Okay, not only is he going to protect you, provide for you, but he's going to prosper you. Right? But it says here that even in your wilderness season, even in your grave season, right? You did not go hungry. Your feet did not hurt. Your children didn't go hungry. You still had a roof over your head. You still had a car to drive, right? You still had a job to go to. You still had a paycheck every week. So let's not miss that part in the scripture, okay? Because I'm sure you can look back on your life and you can say, I've been in that grave season. I've been in that season of the wilderness, right? But God kept me. He provided for me. He protected me. He gave me provision. He gave me manna in the wilderness. I survived it. I went through it. It was hard, but I survived it. So if I ever get into a wilderness season, or if I ever get into a grave season, I can know 100% that God is going to show me something in this season. So when he prospers me in the promised land, when he prospers me in the business, when he prospers me in the new job, when he prospers me with the house, or he prospers me with the new car, I know what the assignment is. See, we don't get the blessings and the abundance and the prosperity for ourselves. God blesses us with those so that we can grow his kingdom, so that we can bless other people, so we can teach other people, so we can show other people it's possible, so we can give people hope, so that we can give people peace to know that, okay, even though they're still in their wilderness season, right? Even though they're still in their grave season, that there is going to be a resurrection. But God needs to know in this wilderness season, in this grave season that you're going through right now, he needs to know when he brings you out of that you're going to be willing to go through the trenches with someone else. Maybe he's prospering you right now, right? Maybe he just brought you out of that grave season or brought you out of that wilderness season. And that means it's time for you to stand up. It's time for you to take hold and become a kingdom builder. Be grateful and go back and help those who have come behind you. Because ultimately, God will grow us and prosper us. But he expects us to go back and help those who come behind us. So I want you to know here today, and I hope that this made sense, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but even if you're in a season of the wilderness, you're in a grave season, right? You feel like things around you are dying, right? One bloom where you are planted, right? God didn't plant you there or put you there for no reason. You're not there by mistake, right? And maybe you're in a season where you feel like you've lost your job or you're going through a financial crisis. But God is saying, even in that 40 years, even in the wilderness, right? He is still keeping you. right? You're not going hungry. You're not starving. You may only be making $300 a week, but he's protecting you, right? He's protecting you. He's still providing for you. He's still prospering you, even though you're not where you want to be right now. But he says, I'm trying to show you something in this season so that I know that in that next season, I can trust you. I know in that next season that you're prepared to get that financial breakthrough. In that next season, you're prepared for the healing. You're prepared in your mind. You're prepared in your heart. You're prepared in your faith. I need to know that in this season, you're going to trust me. So when I get you to the next season, you don't kill the blessing. You don't kill the prosperity. You don't kill the favor. So God says, in this moment, just trust me, because even though you're in the wilderness season, I've got you. I'm still taking care of you. I'm still providing for you. I still have the promises for you, but I just need you to trust me in this season. I need you to trust me even when you don't feel like you have enough, or even when you feel like you're not enough, or you feel like, you don't have enough money, you don't have enough financial means, you're working 60 or 70 hours a week and you're still not being able to pay your bills. He said, I've got you, but just trust me in this season right now, because even though you feel like it's a grave season, he says there has to be a grave season for a resurrection. And your resurrection season is coming. But he needs you to hold on. He needs you to trust him and know that he's going to provide and protect you in this very season. So today, I just want you to know, even though you're in a season that you don't understand, you're in a season where you feel like it's so hard. You feel like giving up. You feel like it's over. Your life is over. There's nowhere else to go. You can't do anything else. God is saying, trust me in this season, because there's got to be a grave for a resurrection, right? There's got to be a lesson. There's got to be a test. And then there's going to be the grade, which the grade would be the blessing, the abundance, the favor, right? So trust God in this wilderness season, in this grave season. Trust him, because he's bringing something beautiful from this situation, from your life, right? Just get in the godly mindset, get in the faith mindset. Trust him even though you don't see it. Believe even when you don't see it, because he is doing amazing things. He says that he is bringing you to the land of milk and honey, right? He's bringing you to the promised land, but he needs you to trust him in this season that he has you in right now. So today, I just pray that this message touched you in an amazing way. And I pray that whoever needs to hear this, that this message hits their ears. And I hope that this is an empowering message for somebody, because I know that somebody needs to hear this today. So I do appreciate you coming and hanging out with me this morning. Again, I hope it makes sense. And I do hope that you have an absolutely amazing day, and I'll see you again soon. All right. Bye-bye.